Good morning, students. Today we'll do the third part of this chapter, the best Christmas present in the world. Before giving you the explanation of third part, I'll just go with the quick revision of first and second part. As you all know, the narrator of the story went to a junk shop and purchased a Rolodex which was in bad condition. The narrator started it repairing on Christmas Eve and found a letter in its drawer. He read the letter. It was from Jim Macpherson to his wife Canny, as written on top. After reading the letter, he found that Jim Macpherson was the leader of England army, and he described that England and Germany were engaged in a war. But was on Christmas morning a wonderful thing happened. First, German wishes Happy Christmas to English soldiers, and same responded was given by English also. The leader shared and ideas and feelings with each other and celebrated Christmas by eating, laughing, talking and drinking. After that, they played football match in which Germans won. In the night, both troops sang carols and had a peaceful Christmas celebration. So, we start off with the third part of this chapter. I folded the letter again and slipped it carefully back into its envelope. I kept awake all night. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I drove to Bridport, just a few miles away. I asked the boy walking his dog with copper breeches was house number 12 turned out to be nothing but a worn out shell. Here, the author has folded the letter and kept it into the envelope, and he couldn't sleep for the whole night. And by the morning, he was knowing that what he has to do. He drove to Bridport. There, he saw a boy in the copper beaches, and there he asked the address which he has to go. The author has decided that he'll go to Mrs. Macpherson and he'll give that letter to her because as that letter was hers. So he asked that boy the address. It was house number 12. But what he saw, the author, he saw that house was burned, the roof gaping, the windows boarded up. I knocked at the house next door and asked if anyone knew the whereabouts of Mrs. Macpherson. So here the author saw that the house and everything was boarded up, that means destroyed by fire. It was all destroyed by fire. In that house, fire has caught, so it was all destroyed. Nothing was left. So what he did, he just looked around by the other houses and he knocked the house behind Mrs. Macpherson's house. "Oh, yes," said the old man in his slippers. He knew her well, a lovely old lady, he told. A bit murdered-hearted, but at her age she was entitled to be, wasn't she? 101-year-old. She had been in the house when it caught fire. No one really knew how the fire had started, but it could well have been candles. She used candles rather than electricity, but she always thought electricity was too expensive. The fireman had got her out just in time. She was in a nursing home now, he told me. Burlington House on the Dorchester Road on the other side of town. So here, the neighbor of Mrs. Macpherson, he came out, he was wearing a slipper, and he described Mrs. Macpherson that she was an old lady and she was a bit muttered, means she was little confused as her husband was not here with her, and so it but obvious that she would be little confused, and her age was also 101 year, so it is too long. and the neighbor described that her house has caught the fire, maybe because of candles. We don't know exactly, but maybe because of candles because she don't use electricity. Because according to her, she thought that electricity is too expensive. So rather than using electricity, she used candles most of the time. So maybe it could be candles that have caught fire. And then he told the author that she is in the nursing home which is in Burlington House on the Dorchester Road. It is on the other side of this town. I found Burlington House nursing home easily enough. There was paper chain up in the hallway and lighted Christmas tree stood in the corner with a low-sided angle on top. I said I was a friend come to visit Mrs. Macpherson to bring her a Christmas present. So here, the author has found the nursing home easily. He didn't have any problem in finding that, and he's describing the nursing home. It was decorated as it was Christmas Eve. The hallway was decorated with lights, and that there were Christmas trees stood in the corner, and everything were in a Christmas Eve. Everything was lightening up. So he told the nurse that he wants to meet Mrs. Macpherson and he is having a present for her. I could see through into the dining room where everyone was wearing a paper hat and singing. The matron had a hat on top and seemed happy enough to see me. She even offered me a magpie. She walked me along the corridor. Mrs. Macpherson is not in the with the other, she told me she rather confused today, so we thought it is best if she had a good rest. She has no family, you know, no one visits, so I'm sure she'll be only too pleasant to see you. She took me into the conservatory with wicker chain and potted plants all around and left me. So here the author says there was a matron. Matron here is a nurse who is in charge of the other nurse. So she took the author through the corridor and he was seeing all the Christmas Eve, I mean all the things that was giving lights and that was giving a Christmas feeling. And that matron also offered magpie to the author. Magpie here means a small round pie or tart something which is eaten in the Christmas only. And that matron is saying that we have left her all alone, Mrs. Macpherson, because she was little confused today. I mean, she's sitting in her wheelchair in a room and she was not feeling well today. Maybe she is little confused. She's all alone. So we have left her alone. She is waiting in her room. You can go and meet her. The old lady was sitting in a wheelchair, her hands folded in her lap. She had silver white hair painted into a wispy bun. She was gazing out at the garden. Hello, I said. She turned and looked up at me vacantly. Happy Christmas, Connie. So the author describes Mrs. Macpherson. The old lady was sitting on a wheelchair and her hands were folded in her lap and her hair was all white and she was having a bun on her hair. Her hair was folded in a bun, and she was gazing to the garden as she was sitting all alone in the room. So she was just gazing to the garden. She was just looking into the garden, and as the author came, so he addressed hello, and he told Happy Christmas to Connie. I went on. I found this. I think it's yours. As I was speaking, her eyes never left my face. I opened the tin box and gave it to her. That was the moment her eyes lit up and recognized, and her face became suffocated with a sudden glow of happiness. I explained about the desk, about how I had found it, but I don't think. Here, the author shows the tin box to Mrs. Macpherson, and then uh, when Mrs. Macpherson saw that tin, the author opened that tin, and the Mrs. Macpherson saw that envelope, and she was recognizing that envelope, that yes, it is hers envelope, hers letter, which Mr. Macpherson has given to her. The author kept on saying the story that he has found it in a junk shop, in a drawer, and all that. But Mrs. Macpherson was least bothered. She was not even listening to his story. As soon as she saw the envelope, she was all looking at the envelope, and her eyes filled of happiness. For a while she said nothing, but stroked the letter tenderly with her fingertips. So here Mrs. Macpherson said nothing, but she stroked the letter tenderly with her fingertips. That means that she touched the envelope, and she was touching in such a way that the most precious thing that she has got. Suddenly she reached out and took my hand. Her eyes were filled with tears. "You told me you'd come home by Christmas, dearest," she said, "and here you are, the best Christmas present in the world. Come closer, Jim dear, sit down." So here, Mrs. Macpherson just took the hand of the author. She didn't even realize, according to her, she is thinking that the author is the only Jim. So here her eyes all filled with tears, and what she did is she hold the hand of the author, and she's telling that you have told Jim that you'll come this Christmas, and here you are. Here you have given me the surprise. So she is very happy, and she's asking the author to sit down beside her, to come closer to her, as she was thinking that author is only the Jim, because she's almost 101-year old, and she is not able to recognize that he is not Jim, he is the author. I sat down beside her and she kissed my cheek. "I read your letter so often, Jim, every day. I wanted to hear your voice in my head. It always made me feel you were with me. And now you are. Now you are back. You can read it to myself. You can read it to yourself." So here, Mrs. Macpherson was so happy that she kissed the author on his cheek, and she is telling that I was waiting for you for so long time. So now you're here, and now I want to hear your voice. So I'm not going to read this letter. You are going to read this letter, and I'll just listen to your voice. Would you do that for me, Jim dear? I just want to hear your voice again. I'd love that so much. And then perhaps sorry, I'll have some tea. I have made you a nice Christmas cake, marzipan all around. I know how much you love marzipan. So here, Mrs. Macpherson says that I'm sure that you'll read this letter for me, as I want to hear your voice. And she's also telling that after hearing your voice, after spending some time, I'll will have some tea. And she is also telling the author, which she's thinking that he is Jim. So she's telling him that I have made a cake for you, a Christmas cake, marzipan all around. Marzipan here means a food which is made of sugar, egg, and almond. Here, marzipan means the icing on the cake. I know how much you love marzipan. So here she's telling that I know you love marzipan and on this Christmas Eve I think you'll love this and we'll have it together. So thank you. That's all with the first chapter. We have done with the first chapter. I hope you have all understood. Thank you so much.